If you ever have a douchebag named Bill that breaks into your house, you can deal with him in 2.37 seconds out of the StopBox. That's why that's called a Bill drill, right? All right, the StopBox. I hate safes. Don't like them. I have a safe. I only ever use my safe. It basically sits as a storage locker when I'm home. I only ever lock it up with the combination basically if I'm leaving for an extended period of time. Safes are designed for longer term storage of valuable items, not necessarily to keep your firearms and tools you use for self-defense away from your kids. I'm going to be talking a lot about the value I see in this box within the context of my family, my kids, because that's my use case. But the main thing I need to understand is how accessible my firearm is when it's in this box. I know it's basically inaccessible if it's locked up in my safe. My kids are kind of at the point they're interested in guns. They know they're loud, and so they don't necessarily love shooting them. But we do go out to the desert as a family. They're around them constantly. They know that dad has one on him basically 24/7. And I do let them under supervision and with a completely empty and unloaded gun. I let them actuate the weapon light, look at the red dot. They love dropping magazines out. And for me, the level of security that's been sufficient has essentially leaving a loaded magazine with an empty chamber and the gun up high where they can't necessarily see it. But at some point they're gonna get bigger, and I do need to have extra security. Locking it up in the safe basically is not an option for me because then I don't have access, but I definitely don't want to leave it laying around loaded around in the chamber. So we're gonna take this out to the range. I wanna see the difference in speed under 3 conditions, really. The first condition would be loaded gun on a nightstand, tabletop, whatever. How quickly, as a baseline, can I get it up and go? Obviously, we're gonna put it in the box, run some drills getting in and out of it, basically, and seeing the difference in speed between having it just out in the open versus inside. And then for reference, I'll be running it just from within the waistband, how I typically carry. Then we're gonna compare all of it, look at the times, and see with the extra layers of security if I'm sacrificing any of the accessibility. Because if I'm sacrificing too much accessibility, then this just isn't a good option. But if I can keep the layers of security, not sacrifice the accessibility, then this looks like a much more legitimate option in terms of security. This is loaded just off the box, kind of like a nightstand, bedside table. So that was a .94. That was a 103. And obviously this is 6 yards away, 5-ish yards away, so I'm noticing the dot and hitting the trigger. That was a 9-1. Now we're gonna go from inside the box, shot on target. Under a second for pretty much all of those. We're gonna see how much more time we're adding. So a 151 on that one. That was a 160. 160 on that one. .166 for that last one. One of the things I'm noticing, kind of just doing these one-shot drills, there's this box, it's not very heavy. I wouldn't say this is a heavy box at all, but it does have these rubber feet at the bottom, so that's keeping it from sliding on the bed of the truck. The other thing is the weight of the gun inside. So this is It's not the heaviest gun in the world, but the weight of the gun combined with those rubber feet kind of just keep it to where you can really kind of fling this box open and get to the firearm. And again, obviously we're cutting out a lot of factors. We're cutting out fear, stress, adrenaline. I'm not actually in my house. This isn't actually a bad guy. Paper targets don't shoot back. But it does allow you to kind of just fling the box and get that lid open because all of the weight of the gun kind of sits there at the bottom. Pretty intelligent design. There is absolutely a sliding scale when it comes to accessibility of your firearms and the security of your firearms. If we're talking about in your home, you have something like your bedside table is probably the open carry equivalent, right? It's right next to you, loaded, ready to go. Then you can kind of put it into a drawer, then behind a lock and key door, and then again, we're back at the safe. The loaded nightstand being the most accessible, least secure, all the way up to the safe. That's kind of my idea of the sliding scale. That length of time between needing to shoot and being able to shoot is kind of what you're sacrificing when you're on this sliding scale of accessibility and security. So when it comes to something like the StopBox, I think this is the least amount of compromise in either direction between accessible and secure. So this isn't gonna be as accessible as a loaded handgun on your nightstand ready to go, but it's also not gonna be nearly as difficult to get into like a lock safe. Then trying to isolate speed and how quickly I can get into the box and start shooting, I don't see much of a difference between these two. So yeah, it's incredibly fast. And also I don't have to worry about electronics going down. I don't have to worry about sweaty fingerprints messing with some type of a sensor. It's just my fingers in a combination that I decide and a decent amount of downward pressure I'm in. Once you've had a couple of dry runs, you've practiced a bit, it's almost effortless to get into. I mean, you can see, this is not difficult to defeat at all. Easy to pinch your hands. All right, so probably the last thing we'll do here, there's other targets set up. So I have two, so this one is about 5 yards, that one's about 6.5, 7, and then there's one down at about 15, so I'm just gonna engage all three of them, close, far, close. Kind of see what times I get. Charlie on that one. That was a 2.55, engaging all three targets. Because Charlie dealt on the far one, need to clean that up a little bit. Lot slower. 2.73. Wanted to make sure I got good hits on that one. Now we're gonna go from gun inside the box. It was a 3.40. Charlie's on that one. That was 3.11. So 3.11, 2 shots per out of the box. So from like the best time 2.6 to 3.11, we're talking about a half-second difference to get out of the box. That one might be the best yet, 3.03. Hits are fine. I'm definitely hitting some Charlies on the far one at about 15 yards. I want to see if I can get under 3 seconds out of the box, still with decent hits. This isn't a match, so I'm fine with taking Charlies. If you're a bad guy standing in my living room, you're not gonna like that I shot you in the gut or in the shoulder. .281. Think I mic'd, and I think there was a Charlie. Obviously, the shots were lacking there, but 281. So I had a 2.6 was my best time from just on top of the box. 2.81 was my best time from inside the box, sacrificing a little bit of solid hits. But again, just looking in terms of time, this is not a slow option. This is way more towards the accessible side of that sliding scale. Mainly considering children, this is something that absolutely gives you multiple levels of security, while not sacrificing the accessibility at all. I think obviously the times here kind of show that. The factors you consider when it comes to the accessibility and security should be geared towards what you're comfortable with and also the capabilities of your kids. I had no concern whatsoever that my infants could climb up a shelf, reach into the closet, pull down a firearm, rack a slide. It's just not feasible. Now, as your kids get older, their curiosity for one is gonna skyrocket. But then from there, their strength, their finger dexterity, all that stuff is gonna improve with time. So then you need to make additional adjustments to your weapon security to make sure you still have accessibility, but your kids aren't gonna be in a position where they could hurt themselves or somebody else. I also think as a parent, you should be desensitizing your kids to firearms. That desensitization will decrease their curiosity. And something like this, where they have to have the knowledge of the combination and the dexterity to get into, will decrease the opportunities that they have to hurt themselves if you're not around. So StopBox sent this out to me. I wasn't under any type of obligation to review, give any positive feedback, anything like that. So thank you, StopBox, for sending this. The 2 questions to address. Would I have bought this before? No, I wouldn't have. When the Gen 1 product was out, I remember seeing it online, and my kids at the time, they were just too small. I wasn't worried about them racking a slide, pulling a trigger, anything like that. So having the extra layer of security just wasn't something that I felt necessary. Now that my kids are older and having this product on hand, would I buy it now? Absolutely. It's become a no-brainer for me. Because I'm not sacrificing almost anything in the accessibility department, and I have a massive layer of security and protection for my kids, this 100% is a product that I would buy. And I do think anybody who has a family, kids, and a handgun for home defense, I think should absolutely have a StopBox. The design, the feature set, all of it put together in a package that really doesn't impede your access to your firearm when you need it is incredible. This has become invaluable to me. I absolutely would pick one of these up with my own money. I recommend you do the same. If you have firearms and you want to keep your kids safe and not have to sacrifice the accessibility of getting to your gun if the need ever came up.